funny how everything can seem perfect when you're too busy looking through rose-colored glasses. I had the job, the girlfriend, the apartment in the city, everything I could have asked for. Jenna and I had been together for 2 years, and I really thought, that I was the luckiest guy in the world. I remember the first time I met her, how she smiled at me with those big, bright eyes. There was something magnetic about her, something that made me want to be around her all the time. We clicked instantly, or so I thought. We went on dates, laughed together, and made plans for a future I was eager to build. I trusted her completely. She seemed so real, so genuine. I never once doubted her. But I should have. I should have known. I don't even remember when the first cracks started showing. Maybe it was when she began asking for favors, small things at first, like picking up groceries or fixing things around the apartment. I didn't mind. She was busy, and I loved helping her. Then it became bigger, like her constantly asking me to attend her events, to support her job, things that felt more like obligations than anything else. But I did it. I didn't think twice. After all, she was my girlfriend, and that's what you do for the people you love. Then came the day it all fell apart. I was at work, finishing up some paperwork, when I got a text from her. Nothing unusual, just a quick "Hey, can you pick me up from the office tonight? I'll be done late." But there was something strange about it. Something in the tone that made my stomach churn. Still, I ignored it, shrugged it off as a bad feeling. When I arrived at the office, it was later than I expected. The lights were dim, and most people had already left. I parked and walked up to the door. But as I reached the entrance, I froze. I saw her. She was standing there with another man. Not just talking, but laughing. He had his hand on her shoulder. The look in her eyes, the way she smiled at him, it was all wrong. I watched them for a moment, the air thick with confusion and disbelief. I wanted to call out to her, but my legs wouldn't move. I was frozen, caught in a moment I couldn't comprehend. I wasn't sure what hurt more, seeing her with another man, or realizing that I wasn't the person she needed to be with. I watched as she kissed him on the cheek. My heart dropped. I don't know how long I stood there, but it felt like hours. My mind raced with questions, with accusations. The realization hit me like a cold wave. I had been nothing more than a pawn in her game. Everything I had done for her, every moment I'd shared with her, it meant nothing. It was all part of her plan, her manipulation. I don't remember leaving the building. I don't remember getting in my car or driving home. But I do remember the sinking feeling in my chest, the overwhelming weight of betrayal. My job was gone the next day. I hadn't even seen it coming. Everything I had worked for, everything I thought I had, crumbled around me. When I walked into the apartment, I couldn't bring myself to confront her. Not yet. How could I? How could I even begin to ask her what had happened? I sat down on the couch, numb, with my head in my hands. I felt so stupid. How had I not seen it? I spent hours there, lost in my thoughts, unable to move. When she came home, she acted like everything was fine. She kissed me on the cheek, said something about her day being tiring, and went to take a shower. She didn't even notice the devastation in my eyes. I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay when I knew the truth now. I was just another piece in her game. But I wasn't going to stay and let her finish destroying me. My life had been a lie. The strangest thing happened that night after I broke down in the apartment. I remember it like a dream, though it felt too real to be just a dream. One moment, I was sitting on the couch, heartbroken and drained, and the next, I was back. Back to the beginning. I opened my eyes to find myself in my own bed, the room exactly how it had been months ago. I could feel my heart pounding as the reality settled in. I rubbed my eyes, thinking it was some kind of trick, but no, it was real. I was back in the past. The night before Jenna had kissed that guy at the office, the day everything fell apart, the day my life shattered. I was rewound. At first, I didn't understand. Was this some kind of bizarre hallucination? Had I died somehow, only to wake up in a time loop? I sat up in bed, my head spinning, trying to make sense of what was happening. The weight of my thoughts didn't help, it only made my confusion worse. But then, it clicked. I remembered everything. I remembered Jenna's manipulations, her lies, the way she used me for her own gain. I remembered the job I lost, the pain I felt when I saw her with that other man. And suddenly, I understood, this wasn't some twisted dream. This was my chance. I had been given the opportunity to rewrite everything. I didn't have to be the same person I was before. I didn't have to make the same mistakes. I was given a second chance to protect myself, to see through her games before they even started. I looked at the clock on the bedside table. It was still early in the morning, before everything had gone wrong. I could hear Jenna's soft breathing from the other room. She was still in bed, still asleep, unaware of the transformation I had just gone through. I stood up, still dizzy from the shock of it all. I had to focus. I couldn't waste this chance. I needed to stay calm, to think clearly. I opened the door to the hallway, stepping softly to avoid waking her. She was lying in bed, the sheets tangled around her. From the outside, it looked like any normal morning, but inside, I was already a different person. I moved to the kitchen, where I could smell the faint aroma of coffee brewing. I leaned against the counter, trying to wrap my mind around what had happened. I had lived through the pain of betrayal, through the heartache of knowing I was just a tool in someone else's plan. Now, I had the chance to do something about it. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how important this moment was. If I didn't change, if I didn't learn from what I already knew, then what was the point? This life, this second chance, it meant nothing if I didn't seize it. I didn't need revenge, not yet. What I needed was control. I needed to take back my power and not let Jenna, or anyone else, have a hold over me again. I decided, right there in that kitchen, that I wouldn't be the same man. I wouldn't be the man who blindly followed her, trusting every word she said. I would be smarter. I would take my life back, step by step, and this time, I wouldn't let her drain me. I could already feel it, this sense of clarity, this new sense of purpose. I could do this. I could play it differently. I could finally take the reins of my own life. When Jenna eventually woke up, I knew it would be hard, but I wouldn't fall for her lies again. She didn't know what I knew now. She didn't know how much power she had over me before, but that was about to change. I wasn't going to repeat my mistakes. I was stronger now, and I was ready to rewrite my future. I don't know when exactly it started, but I could feel the change in me. At first, it was subtle, just little things that didn't sit right. A comment here, a glance there, a way she always managed to make me feel like I was the one responsible for her happiness. The difference now, though, was that I noticed. I watched her as she smiled at me from across the room, pretending to be the loving girlfriend I'd thought she was. But her smile didn't reach her eyes, and her words felt more like a performance than genuine affection. The more I observed her, the clearer it became everything she did was calculated, a part of her plan to keep me under her control. And for the first time, I wasn't falling for it. I used to think that I was the one who made all the decisions in our relationship, but now I saw how carefully she had been guiding me all along. It wasn't me who was in control, it was her. She knew how to get what she wanted, by making me feel like I needed to do everything for her, by making me believe that she was the center of my world. She'd woven a web around me so well that I didn't even realize I was trapped until now. One night, as we sat on the couch, she casually mentioned how she needed a favor from me. "It's no big deal," she said, as if it were just a small request. "Could you go pick up the dry cleaning tomorrow? I'm swamped with work." I looked at her, the words swirling in my mind. How many times had I done this for her? How many times had I dropped everything, never questioning it? I knew what I was about to say would change things, but I had to do it. "No, I can't do that tomorrow. I've got some things to take care of," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Her smile faltered for just a second, but then it was back. The mask slipping for just a moment, enough for me to catch the coldness in her eyes. "Oh, okay," she said, as if it didn't matter. But I could feel the tension in the air, like she had expected me to jump at the chance to help her, to serve her. I wasn't going to be her puppet anymore. I'd let her pull my strings for too long. Now, I was cutting the cord. The more I resisted, the more desperate she became. Jenna started showing up at my office, unannounced, as if she were making sure I was still available for her whenever she needed me. The surprise visits, the sweet calls, the unexpected gifts, they were all ways to reel me back in. But this time, I wasn't biting. One evening, as she leaned in close to me, pretending to care about my day, I felt her warmth, her scent, the same things that used to make me feel safe, wanted. But now they just felt suffocating. I pulled back, instinctively. She noticed, of course. Her eyes narrowed, but she quickly masked it with a smile. "Are you okay? You've been a little distant lately," she said, the words sugar-coated with concern. But I could see the calculation in her eyes. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about losing control. "I'm fine," I said, my voice firm. "Just busy. Things are different now." She reached for my hand, but I pulled it away gently, making sure she saw it. She raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Inside, I felt a rush of relief. I was finally standing up for myself. I wasn't afraid of her games anymore. The more I pulled away, the more Jenna started pushing. I saw the cracks in her perfect act, the way she got angry when I didn't fall for her manipulations, the way she tried to charm me into doing what she wanted. But I wasn't fooled anymore. I could see through it all, and I knew what I had to do. I stopped responding to her subtle hints. I stopped rushing to her side every time she asked. I started focusing on my work, on my friends, on the things I'd neglected for so long. I began to reclaim my time, my energy, my life. Jenna's frustration grew. I saw it in the way she would send me those passive-aggressive texts, or the way her eyes would narrow when I didn't give her the attention she demanded. But I was resolute. Every time she tried to pull me back in, I resisted. I wasn't going to let her have that kind of power over me anymore. And then, one night, as I sat in my apartment, I realized something that hit me like a ton of bricks. Jenna wasn't the one I needed to protect myself from anymore. The real battle was with myself. I had to stop letting her control me, stop letting her dictate how I felt. I had to build the strength to say no, to set boundaries, and to live for myself. The more I looked at Jenna, the more I saw the truth. She wasn't the loving girlfriend I thought she was. She was a master manipulator, and I had been her pawn. But not anymore. I could feel the shift inside me, the strength that was growing, the power of my own voice, the clarity of purpose. I was no longer the man who blindly followed her lead. I was someone different, someone better. And I was going to make sure she knew it. I wasn't the same person I had been a few months ago. Not anymore. The last few weeks had been a slow, painful process of changing my mindset. But now, it felt like everything was coming together. I was finally taking control of my life. I remember the first time I walked into the gym. The weights clanged as I lifted them, the strain in my muscles felt good in a way I hadn't known. It wasn't just about getting stronger physically, it was about taking control of something in my life, something I could measure and see progress in. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was doing something for myself. And it felt right. I'd also started reading books, real books, not just work-related stuff. Business strategies, self-improvement, even philosophy. My mind had been a blur for so long, consumed by the need to please others, especially Jenna. But now? I was expanding my thoughts, learning to think for myself, outside of whatever I thought she wanted. And my work life, well, that was improving too. I was putting in extra hours, learning new software, and refining my skills. Slowly, the hard work paid off. I got a promotion offer at my current job, but when I looked at the numbers, I realized it wasn't enough. I needed more. So, I interviewed with a few other companies, knowing I deserved better, that I had something to offer. And when I got the offer I wanted, the one with better pay and a clearer path for growth, I didn't hesitate. But as I improved, as I grew, I could feel Jenna's presence slipping further away from my mind. I wasn't even thinking about her when I got the job offer, I was too focused on what I had achieved. I was finally starting to feel like I had something solid to stand on, something I built with my own two hands. I didn't even expect it when she called me. Her voice was the same, sweet but with that little edge to it, the tone that always made me feel like I was supposed to drop everything for her. "Hey, Mark. How are you?" she asked, like nothing had happened, like we were still just two people in a relationship. I hadn't heard from her in weeks, and the second I picked up the phone, I realized how much I had distanced myself from her. I almost didn't recognize the person I had been when I was with her, clingy, desperate to keep her happy. I could hear the calmness in my own voice as I responded. "I'm good, Jenna. How are you?" Her laugh was light, carefree. "I've been thinking a lot lately, about us, about how things ended. I miss you, Mark. We've been through so much, don't you think? Maybe we could talk about it?" I didn't hesitate this time. I knew exactly what she wanted. She wanted me to come running back, to fall into the trap she'd set for me. But I wasn't that man anymore. The clarity I had now was crystal clear. I had moved on. And I wasn't going to let her pull me back into her manipulative web. "No, Jenna," I said firmly. "We've had enough talks. I've changed. I'm not that person anymore, and I don't think we should go back to what we were. It's over." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing. I knew she wasn't used to this. She'd always had control over me, always had me wrapped around her finger. I wasn't sure if she understood what was happening, but I knew it didn't matter anymore. "You're making a mistake," she said, her voice quieter now, more vulnerable. But it didn't affect me. Not anymore. "No, I'm not," I replied, feeling a sense of strength rise in my chest. "I'm doing what's right for me. I need to keep moving forward." I could almost hear her frustration building, the irritation bubbling beneath the surface. But I wasn't afraid of it. I wasn't afraid of losing her anymore. I don't need you, Jenna, I added, my voice steady, unwavering. I'm not the same guy. I don't need to chase after you to feel like I'm worth something. I'm worth something on my own. There was silence. Long, unbearable silence. And then, with a click, the call ended. I sat there for a moment, the weight of the conversation hanging in the air. But instead of feeling devastated, instead of wondering if I had made the wrong choice, I felt free. And that's when I knew. I wasn't just distancing myself from Jenna, I was distancing myself from everything that had ever held me back. Her, my old insecurities, all the doubts I used to have about myself. I had left it all behind, and I was standing tall on my own now. The next day, as I walked into my new office for my first day at the new job, I couldn't help but smile. I was taking control. I was in charge of my life. And there was no turning back. But Jenna? She didn't know it yet, but her control over me had ended. I wasn't her pawn anymore. It happened on a Tuesday. I was sitting at my desk, my mind on a project, when my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from Jenna. I stared at the screen for a moment, my thumb hovering over the notification. I hadn't heard from her in weeks. I thought, maybe hoped, that she had finally moved on. But she was back. I opened the message. Mark, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I know I've made mistakes, and I regret how things ended. Can we talk? I miss you. It hit me hard, even though I'd expected it. Part of me had been waiting for this, wondering when she would come crawling back. And there it was, her words, laced with regret, a plea for forgiveness. The same sweet-sounding apology she'd used before, the one that had always worked on me. But not this time. I felt a surge of anger rise in me, followed by a wave of calm. She had no idea who I had become. The man I was back then would have caved. He would have believed every word and let her back in. But I wasn't him anymore. I wasn't the man who needed her to define his worth. I couldn't deny the temptation, though. The old me wanted to see her face to face, to confront her, to let her know just how much she had hurt me. A part of me wanted revenge. I wanted her to feel the same sting I felt when I watched her with that other guy. I wanted her to know how deeply she had broken me. But as I sat there, staring at my phone, I realized something: revenge wouldn't heal me. It wouldn't make me feel whole again. It would just drag me back into the same toxic cycle that I'd worked so hard to escape. I'd already gone down that path, and I knew where it led. It led to more pain, more resentment, and more wasted time. I didn't want that anymore. I put the phone down and rubbed my eyes. The anger that had flared up inside me faded, replaced by something else. Clarity. I had grown. I had learned that true power wasn't in seeking revenge or punishing someone for their wrongs. It was in letting go. It was in finding peace within myself, no longer allowing the past to control me. Still, I had to make a choice. Jenna called me later that evening. I let it ring 3 times before I answered. Mark, we need to talk, she said, her voice soft, laced with what sounded like sincerity. I've changed, and I want to make things right. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I didn't reply right away. I sat back, taking a deep breath. There was a part of me that wanted to believe her. Maybe she had changed, maybe she hadn't. But it didn't matter. What mattered was that I had changed. I'm not the same person I was when we were together, I said, my voice steady. And I'm not going back. I've moved on, Jenna. She sighed, a sound of frustration, but I could tell she wasn't used to hearing this from me. Come on, Mark. We've been through so much. I know I messed up, but I can't lose you. Her words were like poison, and for a moment, I felt that old tug, her manipulation, her charm. She wanted me to feel guilty. She wanted me to let her back in, to forgive her and move on like nothing had happened. But I wasn't going to fall for it. I'm done, Jenna. I don't need you in my life anymore, I said, my voice firmer now. You're not part of my future. I can't let you keep pulling me back. There was silence on the other end of the line. I could almost hear her scrambling for something to say, something to change my mind. But she didn't have anything left. Not this time. I'm sorry, she said, her voice barely audible now. I really am. I just wanted a chance to make it right. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. You've had your chances. I gave you everything, Jenna. But you only cared about yourself. I paused, letting the weight of my words settle. Goodbye, Jenna. I hung up the phone before she could say anything else. The quiet that followed felt heavy, but there was also a sense of relief. I had made my decision. I wasn't going to waste any more of my time or energy on her. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the city. The lights twinkled, and the sky was clear. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. It was over. I had let go. I wasn't going to let revenge or resentment dictate my life. I had found my strength, and it wasn't in trying to get back at her. It was in moving on, in focusing on my future and the person I was becoming. I had no more room for people who didn't see my worth, and that included her. With one final deep breath, I made the decision that I wouldn't allow her to come back into my life. I wouldn't let her control me any longer. And with that, I turned away from the window, ready to embrace the future, my future. I had been dreading this moment for days. But deep down, I knew it had to happen. I had moved on, and I was finally at a place where I could face Jenna without being weighed down by the past. It was time to end it for good, no more games, no more emotional traps. I called her. Her voice on the other end was casual at first. Mark, hey. How's everything? It's been a while since we talked. She always made it sound like nothing had changed, like everything was still fine between us. But I wasn't fooled anymore. I need to see you, I said, my voice steady but firm. I can't do this anymore. I could hear her pause on the other end, the silence thick with uncertainty. What do you mean? Her tone had shifted, now laced with confusion. I mean everything, I replied, my pulse quickening as I felt the weight of the moment. I'm done, Jenna. I'm done with the lies, the manipulation, everything. I'm done with you. There was a sharp intake of breath, followed by a bitter laugh. You've got to be kidding, right? After everything we've been through, you're just going to walk away like this? I met her in the park where we first started hanging out. The sun was setting, casting long shadows on the ground. She stood a few feet away when I approached her, arms crossed over her chest, her usual charm replaced with an edge of impatience. Mark, you can't be serious, she said, eyes narrowing, scanning my face as though looking for some sign that I was joking. We're good together, you know that. We've been through so much, and now you just want to throw it all away? I stared at her, feeling a strange mix of anger and pity. You don't get it, do you? I shook my head slowly, my heart pounding. You used me, Jenna. For your own gain. You manipulated me, made me think you loved me, but you were only ever looking out for yourself. You never cared about me. You cared about what I could do for you. She scoffed, her posture stiffening. That's not true, Mark. You know I care about you. I've always cared about you. But you've been so distant lately, so cold. You've changed, and I don't know what happened to us. I was just trying to keep us together. I could feel the old emotions creeping up again, the guilt, the doubt, but I pushed them back. No, Jenna, I said, taking a step closer to her, my voice growing stronger. I've changed because I finally woke up. I saw you for who you really are. And I'm done letting you treat me like I'm not worth anything. I'm done letting you use me to fix your life, to make you feel better about yourself. She stepped back, her face flushing with anger. How dare you say that to me? You think you're some kind of victim here? You think I haven't sacrificed for this relationship? I've given up so much for you, and this is how you repay me? Her voice wavered, and for a moment, I almost believed her. The manipulative charm was still there, trying to pull me back in. But I wasn't the same person who would have fallen for it before. You never sacrificed anything, Jenna, I said, my voice cold. You used me. And I let you. I thought I loved you, but it wasn't love. It was you controlling me. But not anymore. Her face twisted with frustration. You think you're better than me now, don't you? You think you've figured everything out, but you're just running away. You'll come back, you always do. I shook my head. No, I won't. I'm not running, Jenna. I'm walking away. I've spent too long letting you dictate my life. And I won't let you do it anymore. She stood there for a moment, silent, as if weighing whether to argue further, to manipulate me one last time. But the longer she stayed silent, the more I realized just how much power I'd given her over the years. And now, that power was gone. I'm sorry, Jenna, I said quietly. But I can't keep doing this. You can't keep dragging me down. I have to live my life for me now. I turned away, my heart heavy, but not in the way it used to be. There was no longing for her, no desperation to fix what was broken. I was leaving her behind, not just physically but emotionally too. I could feel her eyes on my back, but I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The relationship was over. And for the first time, I felt free. I walked away, and I didn't look back. It's strange how silence can be the loudest sound in your life when you finally stop letting someone dictate your every move. For the first time in months, maybe even years, I found myself alone, but it didn't feel as suffocating as it used to. I had finally stopped looking over my shoulder, waiting for Jenna's next move. The weight of her manipulation no longer pressed down on me. The world felt different now, more open, more promising. It wasn't just about surviving anymore, it was about living, truly living. I woke up early every morning now, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. The first few days after our final conversation were tough. There was still that empty space in my chest where she used to be, but it wasn't the unbearable pain I'd felt before. It was more of a dull ache, like the last remnants of a storm passing through. I threw myself into work, not just out of necessity, but because I finally felt like I had something to offer. My new job was a challenge, but in a way that pushed me to grow. The long hours didn't feel draining anymore, they felt like opportunities. Every task, every project, every email, these were all things I was in control of, and for once, I felt good about the work I was doing. I also started picking up new hobbies. Something simple, like reading books I'd never gotten around to, things that had always intrigued me but I'd neglected in favor of spending time with Jenna. I joined a local gym, and the physical transformation wasn't just on the outside. Every drop of sweat, every run on the treadmill, made me feel stronger in ways I hadn't known before. It wasn't about looking good for anyone else, it was about feeling good for myself. And slowly, things began to shift. I ran into some old friends I hadn't seen in a while, and the conversations we had felt so different from the ones I'd had when I was with Jenna. Back then, I had always felt like I was living in her shadow. Now, I was living in my own. It felt liberating to talk openly about my life, my goals, my plans, without any guilt or fear of being judged. "Man, you're looking good. What's going on with you?" one of them asked as we grabbed coffee. I laughed. "I'm just doing me. I don't know how else to explain it." It felt like the truth. I was doing me, something I had forgotten how to do. The loneliness I had feared at first was beginning to fade. It was replaced by a quiet contentment, a peace I hadn't known in years. I was no longer defined by my past relationship. I wasn't the person who had been manipulated into being someone else's tool. I wasn't the guy who let someone else's needs and desires determine his self-worth. I was Mark again. The Mark I had buried for far too long. And as the days went by, the world started to look a lot different. Possibilities that once seemed out of reach now felt attainable. I didn't have to wait for someone else to make my dreams come true. I could make them happen on my own. Even when Jenna reached out again, I was unfazed. I saw her name flash across my phone one evening, but I didn't pick up. I didn't feel the old pull to answer her, to give her another chance. I had moved on, and no amount of sweet words or manipulative tactics was going to change that. She was still watching from the sidelines, but she no longer played a role in my life. This was mine now. My life. And I had no intention of letting anyone take it from me again. It was a quiet victory, not loud or flashy, but it was real. I was no longer the victim of my past. I was in control now, and that feeling of truly being in control was the most powerful thing I had ever experienced. I knew it was coming. I could feel it in my bones, the weight of her presence still lingering, even though I hadn't heard from her in so long. And then, as if on cue, there it was, another message from Jenna. I stared at my phone for a moment, the words on the screen blurring in front of me. She was apologizing again. "Mark, I'm so sorry. I've been thinking a lot. I want to make things right. Can we talk? I miss you." For a split second, I almost caved. I almost let myself feel the old pull, the old ache of missing her, wanting things to be different. But then I remembered how much I had suffered, how much I had given, how much I had sacrificed. All for someone who didn't care about me, who had used me as a stepping stone to make her own life better. I was done. For real this time. I didn't respond immediately. I needed time to calm down, to center myself before facing her. But I knew I couldn't keep putting it off. I had to do this. I had to say the words I'd been holding inside for so long. I called her. The phone rang for a few seconds, and then her voice came through. It was familiar, like a song I had once loved but had grown tired of. "Mark," she said, her voice tentative. "I'm glad you answered." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. This was it. No more games. No more pretending. "Jenna, we need to talk," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I've been holding back for a long time, but I can't do that anymore." She was quiet for a moment, and I knew she was waiting for me to give in, to tell her everything was okay. But it wasn't okay. It hadn't been for a long time. "I gave you everything I had," I continued, feeling the weight of the words hit me. "I gave you my time, my love, my trust. I thought we were building something real, but it wasn't real, was it? You never cared about me the way I cared about you. You used me. You used me for your own benefit, and when you were done, you threw me away. I don't know how I let you do that to me. But I'm done. I'm done letting you have control over my life. She didn't respond right away. There was a long silence on the other end, and I knew she was trying to process what I had said. But I wasn't waiting for her to explain herself. I wasn't waiting for her apologies or excuses. This was my closure, not hers. I've spent too much of my life trying to fix things that were never meant to be fixed, I said, my voice steady, though there was a lump in my throat. And I've been holding on to something that's already gone. But not anymore. I'm not that person anymore. I'm not going to let you hurt me again. I heard her take a shaky breath. Mark, I didn't mean for things to go this way. I never wanted to hurt you. The familiar words, the same excuses she'd always used. I wasn't buying it anymore. It doesn't matter anymore, I said, my voice more final now. I've been holding on to a ghost, Jenna. I've been holding on to someone who never existed. You've had your chance, and you wasted it. I can't keep living in the past. I'm moving on. I'm leaving this behind. The silence stretched out again, and for a moment, I thought she might say something to try and reel me back in, but she didn't. I guess this is it then, she said quietly. Yes, I replied, feeling the weight of the finality in my voice. This is it. Goodbye, Jenna. With that, I hung up the phone. I sat there for a moment, my heart beating heavily in my chest. I had said the words I needed to say. I had let go of everything I'd been holding on to. I stood up from where I had been sitting, walking over to the window, looking out at the city skyline. The night was calm, peaceful, and for the first time in years, I felt at peace with myself. The weight I had carried for so long, of guilt, of longing, of trying to fix something that was never meant to be, was finally gone. I wasn't going back. Not to her. Not to the man I had been. I had my life back now. My future was mine again. And with that, I turned away from the window and walked out the door, truly free for the first time in years. It's strange how a single moment can change everything. How in one instant, you can go from feeling lost and alone to suddenly standing on the edge of a whole new life. That's how I felt now, like I had woken up from a long, draining nightmare and was finally able to breathe again. The man I had been, the one who couldn't see past Jenna's manipulation, was gone. In his place was someone new. Someone stronger. Someone who was finally taking control of his life. I was no longer bogged down by the weight of my past. I was free. Work had been going well. Better than I expected. The new job I'd taken was everything I wanted, a place where I could grow, a place where I could prove my worth without being constantly overshadowed by others. I wasn't doing it for anyone else now, I was doing it for myself. And that felt damn good. I spent my weekends with friends, people who actually cared about me, people who valued me for who I was, not what I could offer. It was a new kind of connection, one that didn't come with strings attached, one that wasn't based on guilt or manipulation. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged. And then there was the gym. I had started working out more seriously, pushing myself physically in ways I hadn't before. Every drop of sweat, every mile run, was a reminder that I was capable of more than I had ever thought possible. I wasn't just building muscle, I was building a new version of myself, one that was confident, self-assured, and in control. It wasn't easy at first. The old habits were hard to break. The self-doubt, the tendency to second-guess myself, those were things I'd carried with me for so long. But with every day that passed, I felt myself getting stronger, mentally and physically. I had spent too long letting someone else dictate my worth. Now, I was doing it on my own terms. The biggest change, though, was inside me. I had spent so much time chasing after someone else's idea of who I should be, that I forgot to ask myself who I wanted to be. But now, that question didn't scare me. It excited me. The possibilities were endless. I took up new hobbies. I learned to cook, something I'd always wanted to do but never had the time for. I signed up for art classes, just for the hell of it. The creativity, the freedom, the joy in something as simple as mixing colors on a canvas, it was a reminder of who I was before all the chaos. I had passions outside of her, outside of my work, outside of anything I'd ever been tied to before. I could feel myself expanding in ways I hadn't imagined. And then one evening, I ran into Sarah, a colleague from the new office. We'd chatted a few times, but never really hung out. That night, we went out for drinks after work. It was easy, effortless. We talked about everything: life, work, our shared frustrations with the corporate world. There was no pressure, no expectations. We just clicked. I felt something stir in me, something I hadn't felt in a long time. A spark. But this time, it wasn't desperation. It was curiosity, excitement, and the simple joy of getting to know someone for who they really were. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the need to jump into anything. I wasn't in a rush. I was living in the moment, enjoying the company of someone who, like me, was simply looking for something real. I'd walked away from Jenna, from the chaos of our relationship, and now I was starting to see what life could be like on my own. It wasn't about replacing her or trying to forget the past. It was about moving forward, embracing who I had become, and finding a new way to live that was mine. I didn't need anyone to complete me. I was complete on my own. The past was just that, the past. And I was done living in it. I was living in the now, and the now was full of potential. Jenna's name barely crossed my mind anymore. The person she was, the manipulations, the lies, they no longer had a hold on me. I had put in the work to let go, to release her from my thoughts and my life. She was a distant memory now, just another chapter that had ended. And as I sat on the balcony that night, looking out at the stars, I felt a deep sense of peace. I was finally living my life for me. No one else. The future was wide open, and for the first time in years, I was excited to see where it would take me. It's strange to look back at everything and realize just how much has changed. Not just in my life, but in me. I've walked a long road, and along the way, I learned some hard lessons, lessons I never thought I'd have to face, but that ultimately led me to where I am today. I remember how I used to feel like I needed someone else to validate my existence. How I used to think that my worth came from being in a relationship, from having people around me who depended on me. But that was before I saw how wrong I was. That was before Jenna. The old me, he was lost, always looking for a way to fill the emptiness inside. Always trying to make everyone else happy, even if it meant sacrificing his own happiness. But now? Now I see how much I was letting others control me. I see how easy it was for someone like Jenna to take advantage of my need to please, my need to feel needed. I see how much I was giving, and how little I was getting in return. But I've learned. I've learned that the true power doesn't come from changing others, from making them see me the way I want to be seen. It doesn't come from manipulating situations or holding on to past hurts. No, the true power comes from within. It comes from knowing who I am, accepting who I am, and walking forward with that knowledge as my guide. The anger I once felt for Jenna, the resentment I carried around for so long, it's gone now. It's not that I've forgotten what happened, or that I've excused it. But I've learned that holding on to that anger only keeps me tied to the past, to her. And I refuse to stay there anymore. I've spent so much time focusing on the hurt, the betrayal, the ways she used me, but now, I see the journey for what it really was, a lesson. A painful, difficult lesson that ultimately helped me find the strength I never knew I had. I'm no longer defined by her or the pain she caused. I've stopped looking for validation outside of myself. I'm not the guy who needs to prove anything to anyone. I'm the guy who stands on his own, fully aware of his worth, and doesn't need anyone to tell him he's enough. I'm enough. The day I let go of her was the day I found my real self. It wasn't about revenge, it wasn't about making her pay for what she did, it was about freeing myself from her control. It was about reclaiming my life and moving forward with purpose, with pride, and with confidence. I thought that the end of the relationship would leave me broken, like I wouldn't know how to function without it. But now, standing here, looking at the man I've become, I realize how much stronger I am for having walked away. I've discovered that I'm capable of so much more than I ever thought possible. Jenna's role in my life ended the day I chose to stop letting her have control. She's not part of my future, and for the first time, I don't feel any sadness about that. I'm not angry anymore. I don't hate her. I don't need to. What I need is to continue on this path of self-discovery, to keep building the life I want, one that's not defined by anyone else but me. I look ahead now, and I see a future full of possibilities. I see a life where I'm in control, where I'm the one who decides what happens next. The past is behind me, and while it's shaped who I am, it doesn't define me. I'm not the person who was hurt anymore. I'm the person who learned, who grew, who moved on. And as I take a deep breath, I smile. I'm ready for whatever comes next. Because I know that whatever happens, I can handle it. I'm not the same guy I was before. I'm the guy who walks forward with strength, with purpose, with self-respect. The true power has always been inside me. And now, I'm finally free to embrace it.